On this week's episode of Fishing 411 TV, Jake Romanack teams up with tournament pro Erich Carlson. Erich specializes in using unique structure fishing methods when targeting walleye that live in the ultra-clear waters of Upper Lake Huron. In fact, the water is so clear and cold, Jake and Erich encounter walleye and also bonus lake trout. Jake and Erich showcase the 3 unique lure groups it takes to consistently catch Lake Huron's ultra spooky clear water walleye.
That's an absolute fistful of walleye, my friend.
It is a fistful of walleye.
We are hooked up, Erich.
Awesome, man.
There is not much better than a jig bite on structure, in my opinion.
It's so much fun. Was it aggressive?
It was that solid tunk, man. It was exactly what you're looking for.
Were you working the bait aggressively? Or?
I was lifting it up actually pretty slow. You know,
Okay.
messing around back and forth trying to figure out exactly what it's going to take to get these fish to bite, but that one had zero issue eating it.
That's awesome. Looks like a nice fish. Let me get the net here.
Coming up here. Scoop. Nice fish.
All right, nice fish, man.
Nice fish.
Nice fish, good job.
Erich, that's a beautiful, beautiful fish right there. And he did exactly what you want him to do. You know, I casted it out there and that swim bait was just swimming, felt that tick in the line, came tight on him quick.
A lot of times you can work that aggressively and they'll pounce on it. Sometimes you got to slow that down and just kind of let it glide to bottom and you'll just feel that telltale, thump there.
And this is early enough in the year that the water's still fairly cold, but these fish are on the structure and they're definitely feeding on here.
They absolutely are.
Nice fish.
You betcha.
Now, I spent a lot of time in the boat, and especially when you're structure fishing, it becomes a spot on a spot. And so being able to find those little tiny spots, having a big graph is important. And what I mean by that is basically I have, my normal sonar, I have a medium chirp sonar on one side of the screen on this 12-inch Lowrance unit here. And that's gonna show me fish that are up off bottom. It's gonna show me when the bottom comes up and I can find that structure with that part of it. But another part of it that's super important is I wanna have structure scan, because structure scan is gonna show me those rocks. It's gonna show me those transition edges, and it's even gonna show me those fish that are inside of the rocks. And so there's 2 different styles of structure scan that I have. I have a side scan that's shooting out sonar to either side of the boat, so I can see if I have rocks on this side or if I have rocks on this side, or maybe both. And then I also have a down scan, which is directly below that. And what that's going to show me is if I go over some boulders, I might be able to see those rocks and then see the fish that are down inside those rocks. So between these 3 panels that I have on my 12-inch unit here, I can really see what I need to see down there and figure out where I got to position the boat. And to position the boat, I'm using my XI5 Motor Guide electric motor, and we're anchoring over top of these spots. But all of this technology is teamed together. So I have one graph here that's got all my sonar. I have another graph here that's got my GPS, so I can find those plot trails, find those waypoints, and sit right on the perfect spot. And then I have it all networked together, so when I want to anchor, I can either do 2 things. I can use my key fob, and I can use this little anchor mode on my key fob, or right on my graph. I can anchor right on my graph. So I'm using all of this electronics to really get me in that pinpoint spot to make sure I'm sitting right where I need to sit to catch the walleyes. You hooked up, Eric?
Hooked up, man. Just, I got a little more aggressive with it that time. Wind seemed to have picked up, and when that wind picks up, I like to get a little more aggressive, and the first cast I started doing that.
Well, the one thing I'm learning about this side of the state is the wind likes to change a lot, huh?
You got that right.
It's constant, changing direction, picks up, calms down.
Ooh.
Got some shoulders on him, huh?
This one's got some shoulders, buddy.
Staying down pretty good.
He's digging hard. He's digging hard.
That's good to see.
Yeah.
And that was a long, I mean, he bit at basically the back end of that cast.
He did. You know, a lot of times I pick up, well, sometimes I pick up a little too soon, and, you know, I've been trying to remind myself sometimes to work that bait all the way to the boat.
Oh,
And,
yeah, buddy, that's
nice,
the right flavor, and that is
nice
a stud.
looking fish.
Get him in the scoop.
Yeah.
That's a nice fish, Eric. What a beautiful fish, buddy.
It's a beautiful fish, absolutely. It's a great representative fish of the fish in this area on the eastern North Shore of Lake Huron here. Whether it's swim baits or ripping baits or you know, glide baits like a shiver minnow, it's just you know, it's an absolute ball. Water's a little colder right now, and these fish seem to really be keying in on the swim bait style baits. But you know, we're gonna keep at it and have some more fun.
Absolutely, and that one just choked it. I mean, that's a big bait, big presentation.
You know, you know, some people think they're a little large, but they're it's absolutely what's necessary to get down there. And you know, so you can't hesitate to throw a 5 or even a 6-inch swim bait. It's these fish just gobble them up, man. It's an absolute riot.
Well, beautiful, Eric. We're gonna get this fish back, but what a gorgeous, gorgeous fish.
Special considerations provided by Eagle Claw, the only fish hooks made in America. Additional considerations provided by Fish Hawk Electronics. Trolling without a fish hawk is called boating.
You know, my guest on this week's episode was Erich Carlson. And Eric and I have been friends for a long time, so this was just a good day to spend time on the water with my good friend Eric. And Eric is super knowledgeable about this Alpena fishery and all the different structure. And so, me personally, I'm learning this structure, and he's just the perfect guy to have in my back pocket to be able to teach me where these fish are in different times of the year. Nice fish. I got him in the scoop. Nice fish, Eric.
Thanks, Jake. That beautiful Lake Huron gold walleyes, man.
Another beautiful fish, Eric.
It is, Jake. It's a, you know, beautiful, you know, northern Lake Huron walleyes. You know, that Saginaw Bay fishery down south is fantastic, and a lot of people think, you know, all the fish are gone. You know, the smaller fish, you know, stay there in great numbers, but these larger walleyes kind of tend to disperse out of the bay and move north along the Michigan shoreline. And when you get up north of Oscoda, you know, there's a lot of rock structure all through the whole system, and these fish stay here all summer. And you know, they're not really far off the shore. You can really get on a great bite, and it's a lot of fun casting for these fish.
So basically, the long and short of that is that these bigger quality fish, they just need a different forage. That forage is in the inner bay of Saginaw Bay.
Absolutely.
So they come out here and they can eat gobies and they can eat smelt, and that's the forage these bigger fish need. And in the fall and in the spring, and they got gizzard shad and other kinds of forage in the inner bay that these big fish will eat, they'll go into the inner bay. But this is really where they live. This is their home waters here.
This is their home waters for, you know, the majority of the summer, and they tend to migrate back. You know, and that migration takes place over a long period of time, but they tend to migrate back in the fall and really load up. And when it ices up back down south here, they got the big fish back. But we get them during the summertime, and it's a great time up north.
Well, very cool. That's a beautiful fish. We're gonna get him back and get another one.
Sounds good.
Chunked it, man. Absolutely chunked it. I'm talking just rip the rod out of your hand kind of chunk.
Pile drive it in.
Just absolutely smashed it. I'm telling you one thing, man, at a jig stick, it doesn't get any better. If you're a walleye fisherman, bass guy, it doesn't matter. That tick in the line is just right there. You feel it right in your heart, man. It just stops it.
Nothing like it, that's for sure. Feel like a good one?
He's kind of swimming towards the boat a little bit right now, but when I first set the hook, felt like there was a little meat to him. So.
Well, a lot of times those big walleyes will swim towards the boat or glide.
Yeah, you can kind of see them gliding right now.
And then when they get toward the boat, they dig in and.
Oh yeah, so much fun. The right flavor, Eric?
It sure looks like it.
Oh,
No,
if it is, it's
is
the
that a
big
lake
one,
trout? That might be a lake trout. Big old lake trout.
Woo! Yeah, I'm guessing that ain't a walleye, huh?
That's not a walleye.
Hey, that's okay.
You know, we've been getting a mixed bag today. It's been you never quite know what's going to happen when you set the
Whoa,
hook.
that's a nice one, Eric. Scoop that thing.
Oh,
Look
yeah.
at that.
That's got a belly, man. Look at the belly on that bugger.
Let's try to get him out of the net before he rolls all over the place. Looks like he's unhooked, so that's good.
Yeah.
Now that is not a bad catch right there, Eric. Mixing with walleye, I'm perfectly okay catching lake trout like that on a jigging rod.
That's so fun. You know, we're targeting walleye, but you know, we're catching whitefish, we're catching lake trout, we're catching beautiful walleyes. You just never know what you're going to get when you're doing this. And you know, those water temperatures right now are in the mid 50s, and you know, it doesn't matter. These fish are keying in on these gobies on this structure, and man, you don't know if you're going to have a big trout or a big whitefish or what's going to happen. It's just awesome.
Yeah, look at this. If you don't believe they're eating gobies, they're puking them up as soon as they get in the boat right there. So those are having absolutely no issue eating gobies. It's fun fish.
Look at the belly on that trout.
he's full, man. He is full.
You think he's not got a belly full of gobies? You're mistaken. That's for sure.
All right, we're gonna get him back right now.
So we're fishing, you know, a variety of baits today. We're fishing swim baits, big swim baits, you know, 5-inch swim baits with 1-ounce heads. We're fishing shiver minnows, and they require, you know, different cadences. Those swim baits today, what's working is it seems that they want a slower lift, but you're still lifting that bait, letting it sweep down and hit bottom. With the shiver minnows, what we're doing is pop that bait 2, 3, 4 times and let the bait glide to bottom. And when that bait's gliding to bottom, what happens is that those fish fire up and they come rushing in and grab that. You know, so again, when you throw that shiver minnow, it's just 1, 2, 3, and you let that bait fall to bottom. You'll feel bottom, and you begin the cadence over again, and you know, sooner or later those fish are gonna jump on that, and you're gonna have yourself a nice walleye.
Special considerations provided by Daiwa Corporation and Motor Guide. Fight fish, not your trolling motor. Special considerations provided by the Ultimate Sport Show Tour, Michigan's elite sport shows. Eagle Claw presents the 411 on fishing.
One of the great things about using the Lowrance product on your boat is the audio and engine integration that's offered through the N2K network. So now with Evinrude and our latest software update, we can actually pull all of our digital information from the motor as well as the custom Evinrude interface right into our HDS or Elite display. So within this software, we can actually do engine winterization, change between hand and foot throttle if you guys are using a multiple throttle control. Fuel information is integrated. You can also set up your fuels, your tank levels, and then from there, set up your eco modes and how much fuel you're using per trip. So being able to do this is going to allow us to clean up our display. Through that integration, we can eliminate an icon gauge and give you room for something else, or even add another display on here. So the full integration with our already used MFD fishing device with the motor is one great feature that Lowrance offers.
This particular episode's a little bit different because when you're gonna go casting over this structure, you're not gonna use one presentation. You just won't be a successful fisherman if you do that. So there's gonna be a couple different presentations that you're gonna use. The first one is a swim bait, and it's basically just a jig, and I know what you're thinking, that's a big jig for this shallow water, but the reason it's a big jig is I wanna be able to cast it a long ways, and I want that bait to be able to work aggressively on the bottom, and I can fish this bait very fast, popping it back to the boat very quickly. And that swim bait right there will catch you a lot of fish. The other baits that we use a lot are a bait that's called a rip and wrap, and this bait looks like a crankbait without a lip. It's got a lot of rattle in it, a lot of vibration. You can cast this bait again a country mile, and then you just work that bait, sweeping the rod up and letting it kind of pendulum back towards the boat, working this bait very fast as well. And then the other baits that we use, and we're gonna put these both in the same category here. We're gonna take this shiver minnow here, and this is a shiver minnow, a moonshine shiver minnow, and then this is a jigging wrap, and let me grab it right here. And these two baits are the same category. These are what I would call jigging, swimming style lures. And these are the same thing. You're gonna hear it a lot. We're gonna cast these baits a long ways, and then we're gonna work these baits back to the boat. But these are almost like a walk the dog style bait under the water. And sometimes these baits really work really well. And so the different applications of these different baits, you're going to want to have them all in your boat, and you're going to want to cast them and let the fish tell you on any given day what it's going to take to get bit. But all of these presentations together are absolute fish catchers. You hooked up, Eric?
I am hooked up, Jake. I was throwing that swim bait for a while and just decided to switch it up a little bit and grabbed that rip and wrap and gave her a couple of swings. And
well, I was just kind of turning the boat right here, and I let it off spot lock or my anchor feature, and I just kind of was drifting down while you were casting, and we were just in like 20 feet of water, and I'm pretty sure what you're doing is you're casting up in like almost 15 foot of water right there. Seemed a lot shallower. So what is that? Is that
absolutely,
a lake trout?
that is a whitefish.
A whitefish. That's a giant
not a
whitefish.
small whitefish either. Holy smokes.
I don't know if I've ever seen a whitefish that big, Eric. That is a giant.
That is a tank, man.
Jeez.
I thought that felt a little funny when I was fighting it. It wasn't doing the typical walleye glide, you know.
Well, pull him out of there and show him off. I honestly don't think I've seen one that big before.
I'll tell you this, you know, we're throwing swim baits and rip and wraps and shiver minnows for walleyes, and just got this great big whitefish. You know, kind of a surprise. You don't normally catch these throwing these type of baits, but just an unbelievable whitefish. Huge whitefish for this area. Anywhere really.
Well, we're after green walleyes, so we're gonna go after those.
the green walleyes.
Those are pretty cool.
We'll take these cool incidental catches, man, like, you know, lake trout, whatever. It's all fun, you know.
Yeah,
it's a great time.
Well, the one thing that I tend to do a lot with different baits, and this is a rip and wrap that I have in my hand right here, but you know, these fish are pretty aggressive when they bite, but the one thing is we're making long casts, and the water's really clear. And so when you make a long cast and that fish bites a long ways away, having good hooks is super important. You want to be able to drive those hooks home and be able to get that fish in the boat. You know, you're going to see today multiple times where we're going to lose fish, and we're going to have fish come off right in the net, right at the side of the boat. It's all part of this style of fishing. So what I like to do is I like to for sure switch out my back treble hook, because for the most part, that's the important hook. That's the hook that's really getting set home to that fish. So what I do is I actually put a number 4, like on this rip and wrap right here. This is a size 7. I have a number 4 Eagle Claw trocar hook on there, and like I said, these things are stupid sharp, and so it really does a nice job of getting that hook drove home and getting the best chance of putting that fish in the boat.
Special considerations provided by Trailmaster Boat Trailers and Lakeside Motorsports. Special considerations provided by Procure, ruthlessly effective bait suds.
Another nice fish right there. Right there, that is actually on the front hook, just to give you an idea how hard that fish hit it. And I made a long cast, and as soon as it hit the bottom, I lifted up once, boom, he was there. So it took everything just to get a hook set into that fish.
Did you feel him tank it this time?
I didn't. He was just there. It was just kind of a mushy feeling, and sometimes you feel that tick in the line, sometimes you feel that mushy feeling. When you do get bit on this structure, it's these fish and then even bigger yet. So it makes it, you know, you got to wait a little bit between your bites, but when you get the bite, it makes it worthwhile.
It's a lot of fun. It's sure a lot of fun. You know, up here when you're fishing this northern part of Lake Huron, there's just a tremendous amount of structure, and it can be really challenging for guys to pick it apart, and there's various things that I look for when I'm fishing the structure, and a lot of times, you know, you need to kind of small things down a little bit and a lot of times what they'll be is they'll be like a pinnacle, just a slightly higher spot, or a little better concentration of just the right size rock. And what that right size rock does is it holds the bait and it holds the gobies, and that's where those walleyes sit. They sit right on that transition from, you know, smaller gravel and sand to where it transitions into that little bit larger boulders, or you know, basketball size stuff, rock. You know, it's just that's the critical component to really finding these fish. It's not to say you're going to find them on every piece that's that size, but you know, that really is what you're trying to key in on. You know, and then like we talked about before, the other key is using your electronics, your side scan and your down scan, to identify what you're actually looking at. Take your boat and you go over that with your Lowrance electronics, pick it apart, zoom in on that, use your, you know, get familiar with your side scan, your down scan. It's absolutely the key to being successful doing this.
Throw them in the scoop. What a fish!
Yeah,
nice
buddy,
fish, man.
That's
That's
awesome.
what we're talking about. That's an absolute fistful of walleye, my friend.
It is a fistful of walleye.
We've absolutely just had an unbelievable day on the water. These fish on the structure are so much fun. If you want to catch big walleyes and you want to catch them with a jigging rod, what you gotta do is you gotta get up to Alpena, you gotta fish the structure, and you're gonna catch some big walleyes. So, Erich, I really appreciate you showing me the waters. My graph's full of his waypoints, and so yeah. I think I'm coming back to do this again, my friend. So, hey, my name is Jake Romanack. You've been watching Fishing 411. We'll see you here, same time, same place, next week.
Closed captioning provided by Lakeside Motorsports, Michigan's premier marine and power sports dealer. Fishing 411 is brought to you by Offshore Tackle Company, Evinrude Outboards, Starcraft Marine, Cisco Fishing Systems, Yakima Bait, Jay's Sporting Goods, Niagara Falls, USA, Smooth Move Seats, Lowrance Electronics, and by Precision Trolling Data.
Walleye, it's feeling more like a walleye.
That's a walleye.
Living right next to each other, eating the same thing.
Nice fish. Nice fish. He choked it too, man. Right down in the choppers.